Well, hello once again and welcome back to Clio Cup Spain. After a fantastic day yesterday, we are ready for some more brilliant racing. Of course, Circuit Ricardo Tormo, and once again, it is incredibly hot out there. It's 33 degrees ambient temperature, which is exactly the same as what it was yesterday. Difference is, though, is the track temperature. You kind of saw it there. It's 45 degrees track temperature, which, whilst no, is not exactly cold, it is 2 degrees cooler than it was yesterday in track temperature. And we can see after the second qualifying session, it is Alex Louth who's grabbed pole after he finished on the road yesterday in third position, but there were a slew of penalties, including one to Louth. That was down to the contact between himself and a Bayer, and it actually switched the two in the podium positions, and the two of them, well, they're good podium positions, and the two of them, well, they're going to start from the front row of the grid, and it was feisty fisticuffs between these two yesterday. And they had a bit of a discussion after the race. Abeya pulled into the third place spot at the end of the race, and basically was told to move quite lightly from Louth, who ended up finishing on the podium. He took to the podium, but then had it removed from him. Here is Jordi Palomares, who finished on the podium yesterday, continuing on a trend in Clio Cup Spain. In the previous two rounds of the season at Terama and at Manicourt, has finished on the podium in both races in the Clio Cup Spain category, and of course here yesterday was ended up being promoted up into the podium post-race and actually ended up finishing in second place to make it 5 podiums from 5. Here's your race winner from yesterday, Alex Royo, who was completely dominant yesterday, ended up winning by 4.7 seconds, had pole position by just 0.005 of a second, has to go from 4th place today, which certainly isn't great. Although his lap time today, earlier on this morning, and his lap time yesterday, actually very, very similar. Both of them 52.7s. Here's Fabian Julia, who started from 7th yesterday, ended up finishing in 5th, and will start from 5th in the Lone LR Performance Clio. Then we do have Adrian Schimpf, who'll be starting, or might be actually be Alejandro Schimpf, rather. I'll get it the right way around between the two of the Shimps for the Qatar Motorsports Clio group. Obviously, yesterday had an excellent job to rise up from the final place. It was 12th on the grid that he started yesterday, worked all the way up into the podium spots, then had it removed, and then removed even further with disqualification. The car was 2 kilos under the required minimum weight, and so the 162 was disqualified from yesterday's proceedings. Here is the 79 of Javier Sequindez, who's did a good job yesterday to work his way up the order, but then was dished with a 15-second time penalty post-race for track limit excursions, as did both of these Shimps, Alejandro and Adrian. They both received those time penalties for track limit excursions. And indeed, the next position that we'll come across on the grid is Adrian Schimpf from the 8th position. Considering that Adrian and Alejandro both worked from the final row of the grid yesterday, and they managed to get themselves up the order, we'll see what they can do from here. Is confirmation of your starting order. Louth will start from pole position with a Bayer alongside honestly, the race between those two down to turn 1's going to be pretty crazy. Behind that is Palomares, then Royo, then Julia, then Alejandro Schimpf, and then you can see the rest of the grid order there. Javier Sequindez starting from 7th, then Adrian Schimpf, then Emre Can will start from 9th position. Then Lydia Semper from 10th, Rodrigo and Hernandez, who Hernandez had a lot of times removed from him in qualifying, and so Hugo Hernandez, the fastest time that he set was 3 seconds off of pole. The fastest time that he set that was legal was 3 seconds off of pole after having fastest lap removed and stuff. Some pretty severe penalties. Actually, the same penalties that Alejandro and Adrian suffered from yesterday when they had all of their times removed from qualifying, and so dropped them back down. Alex Royo, by the way, as much as we'll start this race from 4th, and again was missing out on pole by 0.6 of a second, setting a very similar time to yesterday. The thing that I would say about that is there were some issues within the car. Ended the qualifying session in the pit lane, didn't actually complete the final couple of laps. As much as heating the tyres up isn't so much of a large deal inside the cars, I mean, I think the temperature was playing its fair shout. When they're out by themselves, it's not too much of a problem, which Royo actually was. He was kind of by himself. He ended up catching up to a group later on in the session. It was actually Louth who has the pole, who went out later than everyone else, missed out the first couple of minutes of the session, and then just drove around completely by himself until the two shimps of Alejandro and Adrian came out, and then they were actually directly behind him in the qualifying session. Now begin the formation lap now, and so you will see Louth and that Katato Motorsports car pull away. Again, the way to pull the Katato cars apart, it's the white car, the one with the white wing mirrors, that one is Louth. Then the red, that one is Alejandro Schimpf, yellow is Adrian Schimpf, and then green is Hugo Hernandez. That's more me making a note of it myself, because otherwise I get confused very easily, as is the case. And you can see them all working their way around turn one. Turn one, of course, they'll obviously navigate on the start of the race, as they will do with every single corner around here, but it's 215 metres from pole on that run down into turn one. It's not too long, but it is enough time to make a difference. And to be fair, yesterday, for anyone who joined us on the coverage yesterday in Clio Cup Spain, you will note that Louth started from the front row of the grid. However, there was a big caveat to that, is that his start wasn't very good, and he ended up dropping from, it was second position that he started out, dropping all the way back to fourth, worked his way up, and that's where he got into that the contact with Abea yesterday, and hopefully they'll avoid that, although I'm not so sure they will. Abea's going to be determined now, not only because ended up being removed from the, or ended up being promoted rather onto the podium, but it seemed at the end of the race yesterday that Abea wasn't going to get the podium, and he made that very, very clear post-race in his discussions with Louth. So he'll be extra super determined to take over that race lead on the run down to turn one. And then, of course, the 300-metre or so run down towards Dewan, down towards the second corner. It's a great opportunity to go and get that move done. We run into here, you can kind of see as we go through the kink on the back stretch into the Marcel hairpin. Kind of expected this. Yesterday we were talking about this corner as being a corner where you can overtake if you're brave, but we didn't expect to see any. We didn't see any overtakes into it yesterday, with the exception of the first couple of laps, and so yeah, I don't think that's going to change much today. Was surprised we didn't get any moves into this corner, into turn 11. We were expecting a couple of dives, but nothing really happened. Turn 12, the third to last corner on the circuit, and then turn 13, which you can make moves around there. Alejandro Schimpf did prove that quite well yesterday. Went all the way around the outside. I believe it was sort of Sekindeth yesterday, going all the way around the outside before the braking zone into the final corner at Campos. I would suspect in the early stages we are definitely going to see stuff like that. I think we're going to see plenty of side-by-side around here. And hey, maybe even that cheeky bit of three-wide that we got yesterday, Alejandro Schimpf getting up into second position, obviously was battling with Abea. I think it must have been Abea, and it must have been Palomeros, because by this point Louth had already been sent down the order. But the three of them went side by side, and it was the move all the way to the inside that promoted Alejandro Schimpf up into second position. Obviously, he'd ended up losing it post-race due to penalties. First off, the track excursion penalties, which we did have quite a few of yesterday, and then the disqualification post-race. The four cars that came a cropper of the 5-second penalty was Sekindeth, then Abea, and then both of the Schimpf, Alejandro and Adrian. And then, of course, all of those bar Abea received an extra 10-second penalty for further track excursions. I think we'll see potentially a bit less of that today, as they'll all line themselves up once again for the second race of the weekend. They'll have learnt from their mistakes of yesterday, I have absolutely no doubt. The 12 cars will roll themselves into position and prepare for another 25-minute race plus one lap. It should take us up to a total of 15. You can see the air temperature there, 32 degrees, 40 degrees track temperature. That is quite a bit cooler, about 7 degrees cooler than it was yesterday. Boards are all out. all ready to go racing as the 200-metre run down towards the first corner is underway once again. Abella has a great start. That is another poor start from Louth. He's on the outside, and of course Palomares has got to the inside. Royo's got to the inside as well. This is going to be a backwards trip for Louth as they head down into the first corner. Tick it off. That's just one done, but there's still plenty more to come over this race, and I don't think Louth is going to be panicking too much. Sequindeth has gone a little bit wide into the background as he's trying to hang on to the last couple of places inside the top 10. The defensive move a little bit there from Royo as he's just trying to keep Louth at bay right now. It's exactly what he has done. Fabien Julia drops back a few positions on the race start as well. That car directly behind Sequindeth there, that is Emre Chanu now as we head going into turns 5, turn 6. Bayer's leading the race. Bayer's very, very wide though. Palomares right over the rear end. The position that Palomares took up for the early stages of yesterday's race as well, only Palomares never really had the inkling to make a move stick. Hugo Hernandez has come off the final position of the grid and up inside the top 10 already. Saw him go through the shot in the white and black Qatar car that's got the green wing mirrors, just going through the bottom of shot there. And there was a move to the inside. I think that's from Emre Chanu now, who dove it straight. Certainly did. Absolutely sent it down the inside. Sequindeth has been sent off wide. That is just carnage back here. And that's Lydia Semper who's managed to sneak her way through inside the top 10 after that bold move from Emre Chanu now, who's straight down the inside, of course, into T11. I don't think Sequindeth will like that one bit. Hugo Hernandez has managed to get up past all of that and up into 8th position now. I can count, don't worry. There is, of course, the 162 of Alejandro Schimpf, twin brother directly behind in Adrian Schimpf, and there is no position switch between the two of those, 5th and 6th at the moment, making up a little bit of progress from the race start. But as we complete the first lap of this race, the second race here at Ricardo Tormo, Bayer's leading, then Palomares, then Royo, who again, reminder, was dominant yesterday, then Louth, then Schimpf, the first one Alejandro, and then Adrian, then Julia. Look at the move though. Here's Royo, said he was dominant yesterday. He does not want to just hang on to third spot, straight into the first corner. Lovely move to the inside. He's got to watch out not to run too far wide, and doesn't indeed do so. Lovely stuff there from Royo, getting himself up into second position. And of course Louth is going to look straight down the inside. Palomares was not able to do so. Louth will be irritated to have dropped back. This is the second time this weekend that he's found himself starting from the front row and running around in 4th, exactly as he did yesterday. Royo then up into second, feeling a lot of pressure from Palomares. Is allowing Abella to run away at the front. Palomares is just attacking up through 5 into 6 at Angel Neto. He's got to worry though because Louth was right there, and then the two Schimpfs running in 5th and 6th spot. Fabien Julia also closing right in all of this. We'll take a look at the race start again. And you can see really, really poor start from Louth for the second time this weekend. Just cannot get that car gripped up at the start of the race. Also, Fabien Julia, you kind of saw losing out a little bit there in the first couple of corners. So finally, Alex Royo, this is back to live pictures. Royo's been able to clear off just a little bit from Palomares in the second and third spot, and so now can keep his eyes focused ahead. And in doing so, I was going to say he's actually set a decent second sector. That's actually not the case. He was half a second slower in the second sector than your race leader Abella, who's looking for a third victory of the season. Royo got his third victory of the season yesterday with that dominant victory. Of course, had both the wins back in Jarama, but then Abella won both of the races at Manicourt, and so all things considered in that front, Abella lost second position in the championship yesterday, which obviously went to Palomares after another podium, and I think he'll be wanting to grab that one straight back as he sets the fastest lap of this race. That's going full out of the slipstream is Fabien Julia. Now that's not to, we said this yesterday, it's not to fill the mirrors, it's not to try and distract the car ahead, it's to try and get some clean air into the car, because it sets off warnings and stuff with it being so hot. Palomares looking straight to the inside of Royo, or nearly was just knocking on the rear end. Kind of did wonder that Royo was a little bit slow through the first corner there in that 300-metre run up towards Douin, and that's exactly where Royo had to defend. He didn't defend, he didn't want to defend clean air, and that's exactly what Palomares is having to do, because Louth is right there. He's got to worry about his two teammates though, as Alejandro Schimpf makes a little bit of contact. Car 22 is under investigation for a jump start. That is Lydia Semper, who's running around in 11th position at the moment, so she'll have to be under investigation. Schimpf straight down the inside. Super stuff trying to make it stick, and does indeed get down the inside of Louth. The two of them will go side by side over the top end of the circuit, going through turn 7 down towards the Martinez hairpin, and we might well see a move into into this corner. Louth dropping back, but he can't drop back too much because there's one Schimpf, there's two Schimpfs, there's contact between the two teammates, and that is Adrian Schimpf into the side of Louth. I don't think Louth will be best pleased by that at all, and I think the view of a potential podium from pole position has gone by the wayside, and whilst one of the Qatar Motorsports cars has been pushed out to one side, Hugo Hernandez is now on the case. We'll take a look back at that straight away. It was Adrian Schimpf straight down the inside, was really kind of there, but then of course Louth was trying to bring it back over to the left, trying to find the racing line. Two of them made contact. Rule number one of motorsport, don't hit your teammate, and the two of them coming to blows there. And I don't think Adrian Schimpf will be having the calmest end to the race. I'm pretty sure Louth will immediately go over and have a word if yesterday is anything to go by. Hugo Hernandez, though, who's come from 12th all the way up into 6th, has Fabio and Julia right behind, and then Louth. So Louth lost out a couple of seconds from all of that. It's Fabio and Julia who's pulled all the way over to the left-hand side of the track once again. Purely based on the fact of trying to get some cool air into the car. 3 laps completed here, and again, same as it was yesterday. I can't do the maths correctly this time. With it being 25 minutes plus 1 lap. The expectations of this race will be 15 laps long. However, it was quite close to being just the 14 laps. Car 113 and 47 under investigation. I think anyone will be shocked to hear that that is Adrian Schimpf and Louth, as much as their teammates. Race control will still stop any unnecessary car contact straight away, because whilst they are racing hard, and whilst some teams might be like, can we just deal with that internally? You're still racing, you know, so it's motorsport and such. You've got to treat it as is, and so yeah, they'll be instantly under investigation. There was a 5-second time penalty yesterday. That one went to Louth, of course, with the contact with Bayer to make that move into the final corner. The fastest lap of this race has obviously just gone to Bayer, who is our racer. You can see by the check on the timer there on the tower on the left-hand side of the shot, the pink marking to the right of Bayer. That is obviously for the fastest lap of this race. It's a 53.766, which is 7/10 faster than Royo. Obviously, all of the track temperature readings being taken immediately, and they do need to be kept an eye on. It's one thing that we noted with Royo yesterday. Started up the race quite fast, actually not ridiculously fast. It was the middle portion of the race where Royo absolutely turned the wick up in his Team VRT Clio, and just started pulling out quite a large gap as Palomares was looking backwards to defend. And in doing so, later on in the race, Royo was actually quite slow comparatively to the rest of the grid. So I wonder if this is a Bayer maybe going on the attack a little bit too early. Again, a reminder that it is quite hot out there. 45 degrees track temperature, well, between 40 and 45 degrees track temperature, 33 degrees ambient. It means that the ambient temperature, by the way, is the same as yesterday. It was between sort of 31 to 32 degrees yesterday, and ended up being 31.5 as the average by the end of the race, shockingly enough. And that's pretty much what we've got here. The track temperature, though, is considerably cooler. Comes down to a little bit less humidity. There's the look down the inside, so that was always going to happen. So Louth getting past Hugo Hernandez, and now up into 6th position. I don't think Hugo Hernandez was going to really fight that one too much. And who's the next person Louth's going to have to come across? Of course, is that 113 of Schimpf. Of course, with it being a little bit... tyre strategy is the wrong real phrase to use here, because it's not really the most tyre strategical race, but you do have to worry about the thermal degradation. You do have to worry about overcooking the tyres. Louth might have been a little bit more patient earlier on in the race, and is now having to use some of that tyre now to get back in with this group, which might cost him a little bit later on in the race. Royo set a 53.676 on that lap, so closed in just the single 10th to Bayer, but pulled out about half a second from Palomares directly behind him, at 54.149, which was actually about 3/10 slower than Louth. And so I think there might well be a bit of closing in this battle. Of course, this one all the way up to second. It is technically, obviously, all locking up the corner, locking up the front left, coming down to the final corner of the track. Royo is in second, then Palomares, then Alejandro Schimpf, and then Adrian Schimpf. They'll all be closed in by Louth, no doubt. Qatar Motorsports holding onto the positions 4th through 7th at the moment in this race. but they'll all be kind of keeping their eye on their cars right now. That was Fabian Giulia once again. I wonder if the car's already overheating, pulling straight out of the slipstream. There's quite a lot they can do to cool the car. They've got certain things with the intercooler and stuff that they can end up cooling the car down ever so slightly. But when you're sat directly behind, again, I was saying this yesterday, I was having a chat with Jordi Palomares Ventos yesterday before even the first race, and he was saying what you'll see them all pulling out of the slipstream to get some fresh air into the car because it cools it down, because when they're stuck behind it, it gets to about 65 degrees behind the car ahead. Confirmation there of the penalty to Adrian Schimpf for contact. Oh, actually, was that for... No, it was for contact. Yeah, it's okay. I was going to say it's for track limits. There has been a warning to car 8, which is Rodrigo, the American Joaquin Rodrigo, for track limit excursion. So the first warning going out on that one. And also a bit of an update. We had it earlier on. There was the note that car 22 was under investigation for jumping the start. Here's again the look between that to give that 5-second time penalty to the 1:13 of Adrian Rodrigo. Sent his teammate Laus down the road. But yes, the race start was under investigation. That has been put to one side. There is no further action on that. So for any of you Lydia Semper fans out there, there is no penalty coming the way of the 22 for the jump start. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Obviously brought up the fact that there was a warning for car number 8, Joaquin Rodrigo, for track limit excursions. Well, now there's a time penalty, a 5-second time penalty, Joaquin Rodrigo, for track limit excursions. That is the first one of the day. Again, yesterday we had Sequindeth, we had Abea, we had Alejandro and Adrian Schimpf, all receiving 5-second time penalties for track limit excursions, and there are so many places around the Circuit Ricardo Tormo where you can get those track limit excursions. As we complete another lap, that is lap 6 done, and we're approaching the halfway point of this race. The expectation again that it is going to be a 15-lap race. I said that's 6 done, that's actually 5 done. Again, never trust the commentators' maths, because we can't count, apparently. But it is a good lead from Abea. The previous lap time went in favour of Abea once again, and so the gap is growing once more, giving Abea yet another lead. It was an extra 2 tenths added. It was, to be honest, the fastest lap on the previous lap came from Laus, which I don't think anyone's particularly shocked by. This is back down the order. This is the 72 of Hernandez, who's actually dropped back behind Fabian Giulia in 7th position. So progress has been made, and there is confirmation track limits warnings to the 96, 22, 72 and 23. And the 96, that one's Emre Can. The 22 is Lydia Semper. The 72 is Hernandez, who we were just kind of seeing there. And then, of course, the 23 being Palomares, who is right on the rear end of Royo. I think, again, confirming the theory that Royo overcooks the tyres quite quickly. You know, they can kind of adjust tyre pressures and stuff between the races and stuff, obviously yesterday, of what they learned. And they might have started with a little too high tyre pressure in Royo's car, and it's kind of increasing the temperature significantly in the car, in the tyres. And so really kind of struggling with speed as the race goes on. Also, as the rear tyres, by the way, come up to temperature, I was kind of thinking about this last night, was that as the rear tyres come up to temperature, it actually works very much in the negative of the car, especially as your front tyres overheat, is that when the rear tyres are quite cold, you can slide it a little bit through the corner. Yes, it means the front tyres have to work quite hard, but as the front tyres come up in temperature and overheat, and the rear tyres come up to temperature, it means that you have way too much understeer in the car, and it makes things very, very difficult indeed. And that is what Alex Royo does seem to be struggling with, because his pace comparatively, I can speak, to the race leader was a second slower on the previous lap than Abea, who did a personal best with a 53.719. Of course, could have been mistakes as well from Royo, but Royo is under a lot of pressure right now. His team, VRT teammate behind him, Palomares, is right in the rear end. Then it is Alejandro, and then Adrian Schimpf. Alejandro has the more orange highlights over the sort of the A pillar and on the wing mirrors. And then Adrian has the yellow in the same part. So again, respect to Kotato Motorsports for making things easier from our point of view on that, because you can pick them apart from quite a large distance, the 162 and the 113. But and then of course the Team VRT, they're all completely different. So respect them on that front. But Royo despite winning the race yesterday, it's kind of the full example of what a difference a day makes, and it is a perfect example of that. And whilst track temperature has just increased ever so slightly, we're up now to 46 degrees track temperature, so it's up close to what it was yesterday, where the track temperature was 47 degrees as an average throughout the race. Track temperatures increasing. Royo is looking like a very, very different driver today. Just not feeling quite as comfortable. Was absolutely dominant yesterday. Did not see anyone throughout the entirety of the race. Jordi Ventos again getting out of the slipstream of the car ahead, trying to lower the cabin pressure, cabin temperature in his Team VRT car. Again, it gets up to about 60 degrees in there, which on a hot day like this, on a lovely summer's day, I mean, for me, it's absolutely delightful. Not only am I in an air-conditioned commentary booth, but still, it's lovely outside. There was the move from the inside from Alejandro Schimpf. Track limits warnings to Louth, but ahead of him, Alejandro Schimpf did look to the inside and is ahead, so has actually made that move on Jordi Palomares. And of course, one Schimpf goes through, the other one's got to go for it. There's contact. Oh my goodness. So the wing mirror has already been pulled off Palomares' car. Now he's got to worry about Adrian Schimpf, who's straight down the inside. Palomares has gone from 3rd to 5th in 2 corners. For the driver who's finished on the podium in every single race this season, now down all the way to 5th spot, and Louth will be closing in. We'll take a look straight away on the replay, I have no doubt, and you can see that commitment. That is a late move from Alejandro Schimpf. It wasn't covered off particularly well from Palomares, but still, it was a very, very late move, and you'll see it again here. Either way, right at the last moment there, Adrian Schimpf went straight for the inside. Whether race control feel the requirement to investigate that, we'll have to wait and see. But for me, it's just a lot of hard racing. You can see how stiff the rear end of the cars are there going into T11, just because of how much they pick up a little bit on the inside. Obviously, all the weight moves to the outside of the corner, outside of the car, and it just pulls the rear inside wheel off. I was going to say the rear left, but you know, it kind of depends on what corner you're going around. You'll see it quite a lot down here. It's because they're heading downhill quite a lot into that final corner, and they try and just about get the straight line run. It's 900 metres all the way to turn 1. And no one has any wing mirrors left in this race, because, I mean, you can see there the 162 of Alejandro Schimpf, the right-hand wing mirror is dangling off. The left-hand wing mirror of his twin brother in Adrian Schimpf has the wing mirror, obviously, after the moves when they were beating up Palomares. And with them being on either side, you kind of wonder if Palomares has any wing mirrors. Certainly missing the front left. Well, these two, as much as they might well be teammates, as much as they might well be, twins, they are still going to fight very, very hard indeed. I have no doubt at all. Saw plenty of battling yesterday. This is looking backwards down the order, and there is a time penalty of 10 seconds being given out to Rodrigo. That one kind of noted a little bit earlier on after track limit excursions. Has been given another one according to my sheet as well, race control giving out. So it's a 5 second and then a 10 seconds time penalty for Joaquin Rodrigo, who is driving in the final position in 12th spot at the moment. The investigation between the 113 and the 23, that was of course the move from Adrian Schimpf. Interesting that the Alejandro Schimpf one isn't noted in there, but obviously that one is deemed to be well within the rules. The 113, that final look down the inside going into turn 3 turn 4 rather, was clearly just a little bit too much, and so they clearly suggest that probably we'll investigate that one post-race, maybe even get that one dealt with during it. Maybe it'll be a 5 second time penalty. Either way, Palomares Ventos has dropped off of the rear end of this group now to obviously losing a second on the previous lap and losing out a little bit more on the current one, it seems. Obeya, though, doing exactly what Royo did yesterday, completely leading from the front and dominating. Royo's in second, then Alejandro Schimpf, then Adrian Schimpf, then Palomares, and then, of course, the final car in this train is Louth, and he will be very hungry. We're sent off down the road a bit earlier from, of course, that move down the inside into the Martinez hairpin. Here's a look on the replays. This is the continued battle, the second part of that from Adrian Schimpf, who who got past Palomares. This is the first part of it, though. This is the bit that's really under investigation. So just absolutely sends it down the inside, or this is from the other angle, rather. But it was obviously into the previous corner at 4, and then into 5, where Adrian Schimpf was just quite aggressive. Race control feeling they need to, at least at the bare minimum, take a look at that. Whilst all that's been going on, by the way, get some more penalties coming in from race control. I think a 5-second time penalty has just been dished out to that black and yellow car at the rear end, or towards the rear end of this train, because I think Palomares has just received a 5-second time penalty for track limits infringements, which would not be great for the driver who's second in the championship. Of course, the driver who has had a podium in every single race. Well, I think that is a dream that might even be a little bit too far, and I don't think he's going to be able to continue on that trend at the moment. Abea then leads. It is a 5-second. He's actually even more dominant than Royo was yesterday. There is confirmation of that penalty that I was just telling you of. The 23 of Palomares has received a penalty, 5 seconds, for track limit excursion. I don't think that is the last one that we're going to see throughout the remainder of this race, just purely based on the fact that, to be perfectly honest, we got loads late on yesterday. Getting out of the slipstream of the car ahead, that is Adrian Schimpf, just getting out of the slipstream of Alejandro Schimpf, just trying to cool the car down, less so than looking. Loud behind, though. I think there might be some actual looks, not just breaking the slipstream. There is Rodrigo, who will receive a 10 seconds time penalty, as said earlier, so it's up to 15 seconds for exceeding track limits. Again, the first driver this race to receive the extra 10-second bonus on the time penalties. Palomares still able to hang on from Louth right now, but I don't think that one's going to last too long in all of that. And so Abea, who's leading by 5.3 seconds, way clear of all of this, but this group, this entire group behind the leader for second spot is just closing up and up and up. At the moment, it's 7/10 separating the first 3 in this group, Royo, then Alejandro and Adrian Schimpf. And then Palomares and Louth separated by just a couple of tenths of a second. Of course, Louth will be very, very hungry here. Dropped off the podium yesterday. The driver who is right up there in championship contention came into the round joint second of the championship. Started this race 4th in the championship after yesterday's proceedings, losing out a few points not only to your championship leader but also to Palomares and to Abea, who is your race leader, who looks to then move himself up into second in the championship. There is the move from Louth. That was always going to happen. It was always going to be a pretty swift move from Alex Louth. So lovely little look. That'll be down into T11. We'll hopefully take another look at that one. Bit of a locker. Oh, actually, it's not a lovely little move. Wow, I'm going to say that one is definitely going to be under investigation from race control. That was a pretty big door bang into the side of Palomares, who clearly cannot catch a break at the moment around the Kotato Motorsports cars. Anyone who's not seen this race hit him in the side is Hugo Hernandez, who's in 8th position. So as each of the Kotato Motorsports cars gets by, they get by and leave a little bit of paintwork on the side of the Team VART car of Jordi Palomares. So he's not going to be happy, and one thing that he's definitely not going to be doing is finishing on the podium this afternoon. A few more laps left to go, with them running in the 54s. Same as it was yesterday, it's going to be quite tight across the line, but I do believe we'll be going for 3 more laps. This lap plus 1 more lap, being the penultimate lap, and then that's when the time will expire and then will become the final lap of the race with the +1. A drive-through penalty has been given out to Adrian Schimpf, so at least Palomares is going to gain 1 position back from all of that. I can only assume that was for that quite aggressive move down the inside, unless race control have seen something else. Of course, already, that's probably why, because he obviously had already received a 5-second time penalty earlier on for making contact with Louth. I'm pretty sure it was Adrian Schimpf, and then to make another bit of contact, race control bumping up that penalty from an extra time penalty to a drive-through penalty to that 1:13, the yellow highlighted car of Adrian Schimpf. So we'll see him come into the pit lane, potentially not this lap, but potentially the next one along the final lap of the race. Or going on to the final lap of the race, we'll see him into the pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty. It's obviously going to promote Louth up a spot and give him a little bit of a clean run to try and attack the podium of Alejandro Schimpf. But a bit of a shame for Adrian. Obviously had issues yesterday, but still managed to come across the line in 6th position. Obviously not coming into the pit lane yet because he won't be aware of the penalty. We'll get the boards, the pit boards coming out this time that will tell him what's going on. They're obviously their pit lane for the Clio Cup is right the way down the end of pit lane, so they receive the pit boards, and he will know now that this lap he's got to come in for a drive-through penalty. The time is ticked down to 0, but Abea had already crossed the line, so this is the penultimate lap of the race. We'll be heading on to the final one once Abea crosses it, and again continues to pull out. Was a further 3/10 faster than Alex Royo, who seems to have got to grips with his car at the moment, but Alejandro Schimpf is closing in just a touch. Lauth is the fastest of the top, to be honest, I was going to say the fastest of the top 5, is the fastest of the race at the moment. Did a 53.8 on the previous lap. It was a 10th faster than even your race leader, who obviously is not under pressure right now, so clearly doesn't require to set any good times. Does Abea. It's exactly the position that Royo was in yesterday. Could just drive under the radar a little bit, just well in control, no unneeded risks being taken, and so we'll hopefully cruise to a 3rd victory of the season for Abea. Obviously after the double victory at Manicourt in class, of course not overall. There is the side-by-side. That's Lauth being allowed to be passed by Adrian Schimpf. Obviously Adrian Schimpf has got that drive-through penalty, so he allows Lauth to pass. He then allows Palomeras to pass, although I do feel that, and it is under investigation, I was going to say, I've just checked over onto my other screen, that the contact between Palomeras and Lauth, that aggressive dive that Lauth did down into turn 11, is under investigation. Also, don't forget that Palomeras also has a 5-second time penalty for track limits excursions, as does the 22 of Lydia Saint-Père, so another one to add to the list for those exceeding track limits. This is the final lap being begun. There is Adrian Schimpf into the pit lane. That was for contact between himself and Palomeras, a drive-through penalty, which is dropping right the way down to the rear of the order. Bit of a shame for the 113 of Adrian Schimpf, driving straight past the commentary box, which is just on the left-hand side, but nicely up in the tower, a lovely air-conditioned bit, which you need on a day like this when it is 33 degrees out there. This is back up to the battle for 4th position, Lauth and then Palomeras, and again, the contact between those two is under investigation. You can kind of see that it's a little dented in on the front left. I think they're just going to retire Adrian Schimpf from the car, indeed, reversing into the garage. That is him done for the day. And so it's a bit of a shame for Adrian Schimpf, but I mean, yesterday they had the disqualification from Alejandro Schimpf for the Qatar Motorsports car. It's not actually been particularly their weekend, to be perfectly honest. Yesterday, they weren't even on the podium yesterday. We had 2 Team VRT cars in 1st and 2nd with Royo and Palomeras. Abea, who is our race leader at the moment for the Chevo Sport team, was on the final step eventually after some post-race investigations. And for Qatar Motorsports, I'm not even sure what's going to happen post-race here. It should be Alejandro Schimpf on the podium, but I'm not 100% sure if there's going to be any post-race investigations. I think Alejandro Schimpf's been a good boy this race, maybe with some investigations for track limits, which is what cost him yesterday, and then of course the disqualification courtesy being underweight, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that that isn't what's going to happen to Schimpf. All we can know is that right now the final corner awaits for Nico Abea, who's going to come across the line to take yet another victory in the Clio Cup Series of Spain. Of course the lights are flashing. He had a podium yesterday, +2 on those positions, and he has been completely dominant all race. Royo, who was completely dominant yesterday, finally comes across the line in 2nd position, then Alejandro Schimpf, then Lauth, and then Palomeras, who'll be very, very disappointed with how this race has gone. But again, there is that post-race investigation between Lauth and Palomeras, the contact between the two of them, and I think also, oh, I've just seen onto the other screen, Palomeras has just received an extra 10 seconds of time penalty for track limit excursions. That's why he dropped down behind even Hugo Hernandez and Fabian Julia. So he's been moved back even further. It's a bit of a shame for the driver who's been on the podium in every single race this season. Well, I can tell you that Palomeras is definitely not going to be on the podium today. This driver, though, will be. And parked up in the podium positions yesterday after basically not being particularly pleased with what happened between himself and Lauf. Started from the front row of the grid, and second place is clearly the position to start in at the moment, because obviously Abea jumped straight up into the race lead and cleaned off into the race distance. It was a 7-second victory for Abea. Absolutely dominant. Of course, then clear of Royo, who finished 7 seconds behind. And then it was that jump back to Alejandro Schimpf, who will be on the final spot on the podium, just ahead of Lauf, who finishes in 4th position for the 2nd consecutive race. Because as much as we saw Lauf on the podium yesterday, it didn't necessarily count courtesy of the post-race penalties. Lauf ended up dropping back to 4th. Of course, Abea, who's on our screen now, moved up into the podium spot. The fastest lap of that race did go, though, to Lauf on that recovery drive, and I think it will be a big question mark of what could have been. Obviously finished just the single 10th behind Alejandro Schimpf, and then a second further back from Royo. But it was that contact between himself and Adrian Schimpf, the one that got Adrian Schimpf a time penalty, a 5-second time penalty, that really will irritate. You can see Lauf driving straight down pit lane there. You will see Abea pull straight into the number 1 box, and he'll be joined on the podium by Royo and Alejandro Schimpf. Well, I believe after this race, there'll be the top 2 in the championship. Royo, no doubt, will be the championship leader. Obviously, give the car a good tap for success. I think that's naturally the case for Nico Abea, and I'm sure handshakes will be given not only to the fans and the friends that are around, but also to the competitors. No one could really stop Abea today. Obviously, straight over to giving the congratulations was Alex Royo there. Obviously, an immediate handshake. Royo knows how it is. Was completely dominant yesterday, and so knows what that feeling is like. And so the two of them in Clio Cup Spain will share the victories. It is a long wait, by the way, from this point on until we see the next official round of Clio Cup Spain, by the way, because we don't actually go racing for Clio Cup Spain until the 15th and 16th of October. That is in 4 months' time. They'll go racing at Le Castellet. There is Royo, who took the top step yesterday again. But yeah, 15th and 16th of October, 4 months away at Le Castellet. That is with, of course, Clio Cup France and Clio Cup Europe. And then the final round of the season will be back in Spanish soil at Barcelona with Europe, once again, Clio Cup Europe, and then Clio Cup Italy. There is Alejandro Schimpf, who got the disqualification yesterday, but this time can actually enjoy the post-race festivities. And again, the reminder was that the post-race penalty came courtesy of the car being underweight. And I'm sure, as you can already see, straight out of the car after the retirement for the race, Adrian Schimpf was already down to the top 3 to say his congratulations to his twin brother. Alex Royo getting right in the way of the camera there, obviously a bit of a photo bomb. But your race winner, Abea, took both the race wins at Manicourt. This is the first time this season that we've not had a double win. And that kind of plays its part ever so slightly. Obviously, the confidence has been king for some of these drivers over the previous couple of rounds. That's why we've seen the double winners. Confirmation of your race results. Abea taking the victory from Royo and then from Alejandro Schimpf. Alex Lauf and then Fabian Julia in the top 5. So moving up a position from yesterday, but Hugo Hernandez from 12th all the way up into 6th. Jordi Palomeras all the way down to 7th after the post-race penalties. Javier Sequindez in 8th position, and Emre Chanu now, Lydia Semper, Joaquin Rodrigo and Adrian Schimpf. Let's talk to our drivers, though. We will come back to that interview in just a moment. We'll just avail the technical issues and such. But either way, we will now go down to Abea, your race winner.
En el sol de Valencia, desde luego, menuda carrera has hecho de principio a fin, Nico. Enhorabuena, porque entre la dureza de la carrera y el calor que hace y lo que tiene que hacer dentro del coche, yo creo que eso tiene doble mérito.
Sí, la verdad ha sido una carrera muy complicada, el calor ha chuchado. No hemos salido muy bien, pero hemos mantenido la primera posición en la primera curva. Y sabía que en este circuito el rebufo con tanto calor iba a ser difícil y hemos decidido tirar al principio, hemos conseguido mantener el ritmo y con las peleas de atrás tener una carrera limpia y poder hacernos con la victoria e intentar pelear el campeonato contra Arroyo.
Y sobre todo importante, sin penalizaciones, sin track limits tan importantes en este circuito.
Desde luego, sales de las curvas con miedo, vas con miedo de no poner la rueda fuera. La verdad es que cuando vas solo es mucho más fácil controlarlo, ayer era más difícil en pelea, pero bueno, hemos tenido cuidado ritmo y al final ha salido el resultado que estábamos buscando.
Enhorabuena, disfrutarlo.
Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
Well, obviously great to hear post-race from Nico Abea. Your race winner in the 6th race of the season, and again, brilliant form. It's odd that we've had 2 races of 2 completely dominant races, but it's just so hard to keep up to speed with the car ahead on such a hot day. Again, 33 degrees ambient. A look back at some of the racing that we've had throughout this race. Contact again between the 113 of Adrian Schimpf right into Alex Louth, and then Louth managed to get past Hugo Hernandez on his way straight back up the order. Of course, Hernandez was not really fighting on that one, and why would you when Louth was on such a charge? Alejandro Schimpf straight into the side, though, of Palomares, and it would instantly be followed by his twin brother in Adrian, who'd receive a drive-through penalty for that bit of car contact after receiving a 5 seconds time penalty for making contact with his teammate of Louth earlier on in the race. Just not the day that Adrian Schimpf would have wanted. Louth was all over the rear end of Palomares and then would absolutely send it going into turn 11 to try and clear Palomares out of the way, and indeed he did. No note on that post-race thus far, and obviously he'd get past Adrian Schimpf, who then returned to pit lane for the driving penalty but end up retiring from it. Nico Abea, though, would win the race in dominant fashion, 7 seconds clear of Alex Royo. We'll see them all onto the podium in a few moments' time. But of course, with the post-race stuff, with how the points are going to work, it should mean that Alex Royo, and again, never trust a commentator's maths, but Alex Royo will be your championship leader, as after that victory yesterday and finishing second today, should lead fairly comfortably and will now be all the way up to, and never trust a commentator's maths, but here we go, we're going to go for it. It's 262 points that he should have to his name, Will Royo, and then of course it should actually be Abea behind, who will add 50 points to his list from this race, and then of course had an extra 36 points yesterday, so a total of 86 points from the weekend, pushing him all the way up to 232. So still a fair way back from Royo, who's had a great round. I mean, this race would be a little bit of a concern just based on the fact of there was a lot of pace lost from this race comparatively to where he was in the previous, but still found the pace as the race was going on. You can see taking to the top step of the podium there is Abea. On the right-hand side, that one will be Schimpf, and on the left-hand side will be Royo. Of course, they'll receive their trophies. Nice little hugs and stuff, of course, on the podium, and rightfully so. Again, I've always said this before, is that the podium post-race, we see it before in some forms of motorsport when it gets a bit feisty, a bit, feisty fisticuffs out there on track, that it can be a little bit tense, a little bit heated up there. But on days like this, you've just got to accept that it's been a fantastic race. Let's all enjoy it and savour the moments. Trophies then being given out, Royo getting his, and then of course your race winner in Nico Abea receiving his podium for the victory here in Valencia. Again, a great victory, same as we saw yesterday. Alex Royo was completely dominant all the way through the race yesterday, and this time he did set a time that was a whopping 0.06 of a second slower than Nico Abea, but he didn't set it fast enough in the race, and unfortunately losing out a large gap earlier on. Don't think he can get the tyres quite into the correct operating window. And it really did cost him, which, to be fair, you can understand on a day like this. It's gone up in ambient temperature, by the way. It's 34 degrees ambient now 46 degrees track. So it is toasty up there on the podium. But thankfully, you are a little bit in the shade. The sun's coming down on your back a bit there, so it's a little bit covered, a little bit protected. And all of them will take to the top step, of course, because you've got to have your post-race photographs and such, naturally so. And again, we'll see these out on track in the Castellet on the 15th and 16th of October, so a long way to wait until that point, but then only a month until the season finale after that, where we wrap up the season in Barcelona. There is plenty more racing coming up, though, in Clio Cup, because, of course, we go racing in Zandvoort. We'll take a look at the full race highlights, as we'll see Lauf having that terrible start from pole position. He had a bad start yesterday, he had a bad start today. It's exactly what dropped him back. Of course, it was the race lead that was taken from Bayer, then Royo, obviously straight away on the attack of Palomeras. Lauf getting straight up and over the curb before being sent off a little bit by his teammates, as we can see here. It was Alejandro Schimpf getting the move done down the inside, then Adrian Schimpf making a bit of contact, sending Lauf down the road, opening the door as well for Fabien Julia to come through the road. Either way, we'll see the rest of these tick off, and I'll see you again in a week's time. They'll go racing at Zandvoort for Europe, France and the Eastern Europe category, which will be a fantastic race as well. A race weekend, of course, around the dunes of Zandvoort. We kind of saw these a little bit earlier on. Royo just managing to hang on to the back of Palomeras. The 162, of course, of Alejandro Schimpf would send it down the inside and then would instantly be followed by Adrian Schimpf, who would just find a way down the inside with a little bit of contact. That would receive a drive-through penalty for Adrian Schimpf. But just shows what a great weekend of racing we have had here. We'll say goodbye to you now, and we'll join you in a week's time at Zandvoort. Thank you very much. But for me, Lewis McGlade, I'll say goodbye.